Working within Tensor is all about sequence and order. In order to let you know how this works, we will explain this with a few simple examples. In this drawing you see a number of lines and arcs. These are all deselected because there is no arrow in the middle or has a red color, one of the elements. So if I click with my left mouse button on this element on that side, you will see it will turn red with an arrow pointed to the direction where I clicked with my left mouse button. So if I would click on this side, you will see that the arrow will point the other way. If I hit my control key on or press my control key on my keyboard, I can select more elements. So if I would select, for example, this line, you will see it will point to the point where I selected my line. This would mean if I had done this the other way around, it would select that way. It also means that this is my first element and this is my second element. So if we talk about order of elements, we will only talk about selected elements. So I would click my left mouse button somewhere on the screen, everything will be deselected. So now we will select some more lines. This will be our first line. I press my control key on my keyboard and select my second line. This will be my third line and this will be my fourth line. So right now I have 4 lines selected. This is my first line, this is my second, this is my third and my fourth element. So this means it's not important how these elements were drawn concerning the order, but the way I select my elements. So now I have 4 elements selected. If I would like to trim these elements, I can move to the trim functions and click on this button, and you will see that each element is being trimmed or lengthened to extended to the next element. So if I would move one step backwards, please watch, this was my first, it was trimmed to my second element was trimmed to my third element, and my third to my fourth, etc, etc. So this would mean if I would select my last element not on this point but on this point and I would trim, it would automatically trim into that direction. So this means it's very important how you select your elements, how Tensor will react when you use different functions. So I would click my left mouse button and deselect everything, and let's say we select this element and hit the control key and select this element, and we would like to fillet this corner. We can move to fillet, we can enter a radius, for example 3, and we will click on OK. So and this time the fillet is like this. If you move one step backwards, why did Tensor decide to make the fillet on this side and not on that side, for example? This because this was my first element, this is my second element, so if I would trim this, it would result into this. So if I move one step backwards and move to fillet, the same thing happens as it would when you would trim those entities. So move one step backwards. So for example, if I would select this as my first element and this as my second element, Tensor would try to make a fillet between the end of this first line and the beginning of the second line. So if I would move to fillet and would enter 3 OK, nothing would happen. But in this case it would, because I selected this in the right direction, of course. So this was my mistake. So if I would click it, my element in this direction, I would select the next one and this one and this one and I would move to fillet, and instead of clicking on the OK button, I would click on the All button. All corners will be filleted. So if I would move back to the fillet function, I can also fillet an arc. So this is my first element, this is my second element, so you would expect to have your fillet right here, 3, and there's your fillet. So you always decide what tensor will do when you hit a function by selecting your elements in a certain sequence and in a certain direction. Okay, so try to play around a little bit with this information before you move on to the next function or next video, where I will explain you how to select a number of elements in a very fast manner.